Hello. I was talking to one of my workmates yesterday. She had come to the country of the United States when she was about 2 years old, and in a span of 12 years, her parents had moved 13 times into different neighborhoods, and she had attended 13 schools in a span of 12 years. And as I was listening to her, she told me she had little or no choice. But if anybody asked her, she would have chosen to stay in one place uh, during her childhood years. She has grown up, she's now a nurse, she has children, but she was recounting to me the challenges that she faced while she was a new immigrant person. You know, even though she came here when she was young, she was still an immigrant, and her parents were moving around every time. And that actually resonated with me because I also am an immigrant. And whereas we have different kinds of immigrants, I am an immigrant by choice. There are people who are immigrants because there was war in their country, there was something going on in their country, and they had to find a safer place to live in. There are people who are immigrants because they were looking for, more opportunities. I'm an immigrant because I was also looking for more opportunities, but mostly I really wanted to raise my family with us together. My husband had come to school and left me behind for 3 years, and I was like, it's time for me to join my husband because he was a scholar, so that we could raise our children together. And based on my own experience and the experience of this nurse who was talking to me yesterday, I do realize that immigrant families have several challenges, which I want to share with you. As an immigrant parent, it is really a challenge to raise up an immigrant child. We do have different kinds of immigrant children. We have children who were born here by immigrant parents. We have children who were brought when they were young. We have children who were left behind when the parents immigrated and they came to join later. There are several kinds, and in order for you to be able to understand on how to raise up an immigrant child, you really have to do some kind of research. So I'm giving you a few of the challenges that these children face. One thing, one of the children once spoke and said that, when parents bring their children out of the land, it's like they pluck them away from their friends abruptly with little or no chance for them to say bye. Nobody explains to them what they are coming into. Nobody really takes the time to explain to a child what they are going into. So some of the challenges that the children face, number one, is a struggle for them to fit in. The children always are constantly struggling to fit in. They struggle to fit in because they do not speak as the others speak. They struggle to fit in because sometimes they do not look like other people look. They struggle to fit in because financially they may not be up to par. So they are always struggling to fit in. As a parent, it's your responsibility to understand when your child is struggling to fit in. And in order for you to understand, you really have to be very close to your child so that you can know that your child is actually struggling to fit in. Number two, these children, we bring them and they are growing between two cultures. And especially for me as an African parent, I really want my children to uphold the African standards and the African culture of dress and food and the manner of life. But one thing I failed to do is to understand that these children are juggling between two cultures. They want to live as the expectations of the African culture. They also want to fit into the Western culture that we are now bringing them in. And unless as a parent you really take time to understand your child, it's going to be a problem because these children are operating within two cultures. The expectations are high. We as parents, we want them to uphold the culture fully, and we also expect them to mingle. We really need to understand and help our children as they juggle between two cultures. We need to find a way of supporting them so that they can be able to at least grow up with little conflict in their hearts. Loosen up in some of your family customs so that the children can be able to get accustomed to the culture you're bringing them in. You know, sometimes it's okay for us to reconcile some of the expectations with the new environment where the children are growing. They have so much internal conflict because they are like, it's an identity crisis. Who am I? Who am I supposed to be? What do I do here now? So it's really a cry, an outcry that we really need to understand and bring up these children with so much care that we do not lose them while we are trying to preserve our cultures if we have migrated. Another thing that these children face is pressure. There is too much pressure from society, too much pressure from the family, too much pressure from the teachers, too much pressure from everybody, pressure to achieve, pressure to be like peer pressure. You know, you want to be like them. You don't eat like us. You don't dress like us. There is pressure from every point. They get pressure from the peers. They get pressure from society. They get pressure from home. The children of an immigrant family have so much pressure. And specifically, we as parents, we sometimes fear losing them. So we are putting too much pressure on them. So I know I have not done so much of what I'm telling you, but it's just an eye-opener listening to somebody who is now grown, who has her own children, trying to share with me what the struggles were while she was growing up. Pressure. So these children of an immigrant family have so much pressure. There is also the conflict surrounding nonverbal language. I remember one time I was at work and I was trying to explain something to one of the nurses, and I used physical signs, you know, using my hands. I was telling her that I wanted to make a point about something being full. So I used what we do as Africans to express fullness. And she put her hands on her mouth and said, "Man, don't do that. Don't ever do that." For her, that was a really, really bad thing that I did. You know, it should create in us a desire to understand nonverbal culture, nonverbal expectations, nonverbal language. You know, for an African, I'm an African. For an African parent, if a child looks straight to your eyes, sometimes it's deemed like the child is rude. So they have to avoid eye contact because they are giving respect. But in the Western culture, you don't look to an adult. It's like, you know, it's different. So we need to understand and teach the children how to use nonverbal language, because some of the children are misunderstood as being rude. Some of them are misunderstood as being irritable, while they are just trying to preserve the culture in which they were brought up in. So it's okay for a parent to just understand that this is something we need to address in the family. There's also this idea of the conflict surrounding dating, the conflict surrounding acceptable clothing, the conflict surrounding curfews. You know, we were brought up knowing that dating was out of bounds, out of bounds until maybe you were in college or you had finished college. And we are bringing up our children in a culture where dating is allowed as young as 12. You know, I once took my child, she was 14, to the doctor's office, and the doctor was asking her, "Do you have a boyfriend?" And I was like, God, what is this one asking my daughter? She's not expected to have a boyfriend at 14. But guess what? I needed to understand that I have brought my children to a culture where, you know, so there is a conflict. What do I do here now? We need to constantly teach them and help them to understand why we do things the way we did, and help them to adjust even in doing what others are doing, but do it with a lot of caution, you know. Otherwise, if we don't do it, it leads to rebellion, it leads to isolation, it leads to depression, it leads to children feeling like they do not belong. So the challenges of the immigrant child are many, they abound. If you read what psychologists say, they say that we need to approach this with caution. And I will be studying more about this. I will be studying more about how to handle an immigrant child, how to help the children acculturate, how to help them cope. Otherwise, if you are an immigrant child watching my video, please forgive us. Some of us parents did what we did. We do what we do with your best interest in our hearts. We just don't know how to do it. We do it how we know best. But I promise we're going to start learning. And if you are an immigrant parent, take some time to understand. Take some time to understand the culture in which you have moved into. Take some time to understand and learn how to help your child overcome the challenges that an immigrant child faces. So may the Lord bless you and guide you. And if there is anything that has harmed you, I pray that the Lord will restore. I pray that the Lord will help you overcome. I pray that God will shine his light upon you. May the Lord bless you abundantly in his name. Amen.